Now watch this. Here's a quote from Justin Martyr. This is his authority. And I documented this. It's 35 in his dialogue with Trypho. He says, for what things he predicted would take place in his name, these we do see being actually accomplished in our sight. So here is Justin Martyr saying that these things were actually being accomplished. That is correct, Kenneth. That's when the miracles were still active in the church. And that's referring back to that text in James 5. So it was verse 14. All right. But anyway, he says, for he said, many shall come in my name, clothed outwardly in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. All right, that's Matthew 7:15. There shall be schisms and heresies, 1 Corinthians 11:19. And beware of false prophets who come to you outwardly in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravening wolves, Matthew 7:15. But look at the other text that he quotes. Now he says these things we do see being accomplished in our sight. Now, Justin Martyr was born after 70 AD. At the time of the destruction of, after the temple was destroyed. And here is Christ giving a prophecy in Matthew 24 and verse 11 concerning the destruction of the temple, which, by the way, Michael Holloway agreed happened in 70 AD. And many false Christs and false apostles shall arise and shall deceive the faithful. And he cites Matthew 24 and 11. So here's the question. How can Justin Martyr be seeing these false Christs arise that were connected with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD at the time that he wrote this text? I'm simply saying, if that's going to be your source of authority, it's just not going to work. It's not sufficient. And so if you go to him to try to build your doctrine on, you're going to have lots of problems. Now, look, I've got tons of quotes from Justin Martyr and several others. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see if there's anything I want to cover. All right, here's something interesting. Now, if you look at Justin Martyr's End Time program, he uses Daniel 7:13, Daniel 7:9 through 10, Matthew 25:31, Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, which is the dry bones, Isaiah 45:23, which is judgment, Zechariah 12:10 through 14. All right. So he joins together the prophecies, Daniel 7:13, the coming of the Son of Man, and Ezekiel 37 and the dry bones, and Isaiah 66:24. He's placing all of those prophecies together as being fulfilled. When you look at this, as you'll actually see that Michael Holloway himself takes Zechariah 12:10 through 14 and applies it to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. I asked him very clearly, I've got this documented, it's on Facebook, when was Matthew 24:30 fulfilled? And he said, in 70 AD. I asked him, was it the same Jesus? He said, it was. I asked him, was it imminent? He says, yes, it was an imminent coming. But he says, but it's still imminent today, or something to that effect. And so he affirmed that a judgment coming of the Lord in the clouds happened in the first century, according to Matthew 24 and verse 30. Acknowledging that those things were fulfilled. And I asked him, was it fulfilled in that generation? And he said, yes, it was fulfilled in that generation. So here's the other question I asked him. Because what he does is he takes Acts 1 and 11, and he attempts to pit it against Matthew 24 and verse 30. But let's take a look at